All right, so we're back at the shop. This is probably a week later from last time. Um, Pretty successful getting the adhesive off the seats from the double-sided tape. I soaked the seats in Leatherique, came back midweek, put another coat of Leatherique on, and then came back a couple nights ago and cleaned off all of the residue. I'll kind of go over the Leatherique process in a minute here too when we get up a little closer. Found some owner's manuals in one of the boxes of stuff that I got from H&B last summer, I think. An E32 750 owner's manual and service booklet and a few things, and a nice little BMW pouch. So that'll go in the glove box. Today, the plan is I've got a set of very nice looking throttle bodies that look like they've been rebuilt. I also have some conductor plates from v12throttle.com coming, so I probably will end up rebuilding them anyway, but I thought they look a lot better than what's in the car. I'm going to put them on, see if it makes a difference in the way it runs. Uh, Finally, I've been waiting for an oil filter. Wrong oil filter came the first time, because I guess there are two different filters that could be used on the V12. So oil change, and then I've got a set of oxygen sensors to put on. We'll see if we have enough time to get all that done this afternoon. And then we'll go from there. So let me bring the camera in a little closer. I'll show you what the interior is looking like, and then I'll show you some of the stuff that we have here. All right, so here's where we're at. You can still see the bolsters are a little dry looking. They're soft, but they need a little bit more work. But cleaned up really well. I got almost all of the residue off the dash also. Wood trim is kind of faded. His car looks like spent some time just sitting in the sun. Back seat looks great. Also, headliner is sagging as you would expect. But overall, the interior cleaned up pretty good. It doesn't smell bad. This is the main component to Leatherique, the rejuvenating oil. So basically, you take a handful of oil, and I just use my hands with gloves on them, and you rub it into the seats. You really want to put a fair amount on there and get the seats pretty oily. Ideally, you would put the car out in the sun for a day or so. You can see how terrible that door seal looks. But it's been cold and it's been raining, so the car has been sitting in the shop. But the same thing happens: the leather absorbs the oil, and as the oil gets absorbed, all of the dirt and grime and everything in the leather gets brought up to the surface. So then you come back, a day or two later, and there's a cleaning agent that goes with the Leatherique process. You spray that on the seats. You use a damp towel to kind of clean that off, and then a dry towel to kind of finish it off from there. And you're usually left with clean, somewhat softer, not really shiny or greasy typically. So it's a surface you can kind of be comfortable to just get in and sit in and use. I used quite a bit of solvent on these bolsters to get the adhesive off, and it needs a little bit more work to kind of help restore some of the oils that were lost by me cleaning off the glue. So let's go look at some of the other parts we've got here. We've got a pair of very nice looking throttle bodies, oil filter, some oil, and a pair of oxygen sensors. Bunch of fuel hose, because that most of that'll happen when I pull the rails off and send the injectors out, but all the fuel lines need to be replaced, of course. And then I've just got a box from home of random fuel hose and vacuum line and stuff, and we'll replace stuff as we go. So let's get in there. We'll get the camera closer to the engine bay, and we'll start with swapping these throttle bodies. All right, so let's work on getting this throttle body off. First, we need to get this intake boot out of the way. I went through and did a little bit of cleaning in here after the pressure washing last week. So it's a little bit nicer place to be. Maybe we should undo that too. Get the airflow meter out of the way here. Oh, this is bolted on. I forgot I replaced all the hardware. Everything's bolted in now.
These are new boots. These were put on before I brought the car home from the shop because the old ones were just terrible. These are nice and flexible.
The intakes are going to all come off at some point in the not too distant future, so I can replace the seals, do the valve cover gaskets, even though they're not leaking yet. I'm sure they will eventually here. This is the hardest bolt to reach. There we go. There are some hoses going to the evap purge valve that I'll replace. I think it's going to be the same size as fuel line. If not, hopefully I've got some hose in my big box of hoses that will fit. The other side, we actually just capped it off because there was a big leak before I brought the car home, and we just capped it so I wouldn't have a massive vacuum leak. But we did actually smoke test it before I drove the car home, and that was the only real significant leak as far as air leaks go. And yeah, here's part of that hose. We'll pull this closer to the camera, and it's totally snapped off, so that's probably not helping things. So I'm sure I had a good leak there. This hose doesn't look too bad. This is crankcase ventilation, but I'll replace all that stuff when we actually get into doing valve cover gaskets. A little bit of, there we go. A little bit of persuasion. Get the connector off. Get the vacuum line disconnected. And we're out. So yeah, let me bring this over here. Yeah, that was probably an air leak there, I'm sure. Smells like gas. All right, I'm gonna clean that up. We'll find some hose and we'll kind of move on. Okay, so over at the workbench, I got a new evap purge valve line and a vacuum line long enough to reach the correct side fuel pressure regulator. And we've got a new gasket to put on. So let me connect the purge valve first, because that goes down here where it's a little harder to reach. Actually, it's probably not any harder now that that stuff is out of the way. So let's try to feed this through with a fresh
Gaskets. Oops. That's the wrong way. There we go. I love this hose clamp. We have a position that's pushing against this crankcase.
I'm hopeful that not having that giant vacuum leak will make a noticeable difference in the way the car is running. Wasn't running terrible, but can only be better. The date code on, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, if you've noticed, I put this on backwards. So start over. Date code on that vacuum hose was 16th week of 1989. So this is a July of 89 build car, so sounds like original hose. Pay more attention to what I'm doing here as far as putting the throttle body on in the right way. Okay, throttle bodies are in, new gaskets, new vacuum lines, new hoses to the evap purge valves. Um, so we should be fairly air leak free. This is all probably going to come off at some point anyway. I want to rebuild the throttle bodies, intake gaskets, valve cover gaskets, all that, but I'd like to see how good we could get it running before we really go that far. So let's get a little closer. Let's make sure the throttle bodies actuate when we turn the ignition on, and then we'll fire it up. All right, so I moved 4 cars to get this thing on the lift. Startup was a little disappointing. It definitely wasn't running better, and I kind of questioned if it was running a little worse. Then again, it has been sitting for a week. Last time when I had it out, I had pressure washed the engine, so maybe there was some dampness in the electrics, like distributor cap or something. Once it warmed up, it was running pretty good. So it's warm. Got it on the lift. We're going to do the oil change, see how difficult it looks like the O2 sensors will be. And if it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad, we'll get those done today. If not, I may have to come back tomorrow or the next day. Cause got a limited amount of time today. But let's get the oil filter changed while it's on the ground, and then we'll get it up and drain the oil. All right, we'll get the filter out. 13 millimeter socket for the filter bolt. It is hot. Filter made in India. '09, 2012. That's good. 13-year-old filter. Maybe it's sat on a shelf for a few years, but probably at least 10. Let's stick it in here to drain and get this out of the way. Whew, it's hot. It smells like gas, too. All right, oh, made a little bit of a mess getting the filter out. Not bad, but filter housing looks pretty clean. So what's your stance on pre-filling the oil filter housing? Personally, I'm not really a big believer in it. The filter housing drains pretty fast. So I think by the time I put oil in there and put the filter in and put the cap on and get the bolt in, it's going to kind of be drained again. Let's see if I can get everything ready. Get the new gasket on the filter housing, get the new O-ring for the bolt. Glad I didn't do this. Try to do this while the filter was draining, because there's like a, there we go. O-ring did not want to come out. Let's see, screwdriver to pop that out. And I understand the theory, because when you start this car up with a dry oil filter housing, the oil pressure light will be on for 5 or 6 seconds. Although I don't think you don't have oil pressure. I think it's just you don't have oil pressure at the filter housing, because that's where I believe that's where the oil pressure sending unit is. So let's have everything ready. And we filter. Oh, of course, there's plastic on there. There we go. So I'm using cheap oil, Chevron 1540, non-synthetic. I don't plan on this being in here too long. It's just that it's been such a long time. I kind of wanted to run this and maybe some engine flush through the engine. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Felt like that was like half full by the time I got the cap on. I put about a quart in there. It's a big housing. We'll see if it makes a difference when we start it. I have a feeling I might have just drained half a quart of oil through the filter housing though, but we'll see. I'm going to pause this until we get the car up in the air. All right, we're up in the air, obviously, and try not to make a mess like I did with the E55. Get the pan in a little better position once I get this broken loose. Kind of oily under here. I'm not sure if it's, I mean, it looks like engine oil, although it's not dripping anything on the ground, interestingly. Lots of cobwebs and stuff from sitting for a long time. And yeah, it's kind of like coming out like water. Fresh oil will help for just make it, and that, man, that smells like gas. So yeah, that's been sitting for, I mean, 10, 12, 13 years maybe. And it had a bit of a misfire for a while. We could do a little walk around underneath once we get this done. One disappointment, aftermarket cats. You know, factory cats would have been much nicer. The oxygen sensors are sitting on top of the cats. I've got an oxygen sensor socket, so I might see how much of a fight they put up. Julian, who I bought the car from, does have another full set of factory cats that I may try to borrow, at least to get the car through smog, because the car doesn't smell too clean with these. And the last time, when it did go off the road, it went off the road as a, I can't remember if it was a gross polluter or if it just failed, but it was not running clean. The rest of it looks okay. I mean, it's kind of oily here and there. Transmission looks dry. Fills are great, and there's no rust anywhere that I'm seeing. Before I took the car, we put it up in the air at the shop, and before I drove it home, the front end had a ton of play, mainly from the center link. So one of the guys at the shop actually he's an E32 guy, and he had a center link, so he put it in this car for me, which is partly why the alignment's way off now, because it was probably aligned based on some worn components. And they also had a set of good used rear suspension accumulators, because these were bad. The car rode like a rock in the back, and the front end is the most worn out shocks I've ever felt. There's still a parts car 750 over there, and I'm going to see if I can get the, just take these suspension strut shock combo and spring, off, and just put them on that car and take those for this one, because that car was better maintained, so they're probably not as blown out as these are, just for now. Kind of trying to get this car to a drivable point with really minimal money invested, just in case it all goes south and I want to bail out on it. These things aren't worth much on a good day. And remember, again, this was bought as a parts car. Although I hate parting out a car that's complete. So let's let this drain for just a little bit more. I got a washer to put on there. We'll get it back down, fill it back up. Actually, maybe before we do that, I'll see if I can break one of those oxygen sensors loose. here. Huh. So the passenger side, so bank one, I guess, oxygen sensor was rubbing against the drive shaft, and it's kind of has a hole worn through the wiring. So that's not helping things out. Let's see, is this socket the correct socket for these oxygen sensors? Doesn't feel like it. Maybe I'll put a wrench on there though. Let's see. So that would probably help, huh? I have a pair of functioning oxygen sensors. If I brought the right wrenches with me. It's like the E32 M5 should be a 22. And it is. Oh, and they're not tight. Okay, good. So we will be replacing oxygen sensors. And that should make, I keep saying that should make a difference. Every time I do something, it really doesn't make a difference, but I'm a optimistic guy. Tons of wiring here. Let me cut these zip ties off and get the wiring down. There's one thing that went easy though. That's nice. Style 3s are growing on me. Or chrome style 3s. I'm a fan of the style 3s. I didn't like them in chrome. But they are growing on me. I guess the question is, does anyone make a 225 60/15 tire anymore? There we go. Jeez. Get all that extra oxygen sensor wiring. I hope my replacements aren't like that. Let's see which one. This is the one that the wire is broken. So let's get that off first. There we go. There we are. I was getting a lambda fault. So I guess that could be why. Although not a check engine light. Well, that's not true. I have a blinking check engine light. And when I read fault codes, it was lambda bank. I thought it was bank 2. And this should be bank. Passenger side should be bank 1, right? Oh, the other thing I found out, one thing that Julian did take was the 315 limited slip diff. So it's got a 315 open. Not the end of the world. But what are you going to do? All right. Looks rich. I mean, it smells rich. I can't imagine that the way it was dumping fuel when I first fired it up. I can't imagine that was good for the oxygen sensors. Let's cap this off and get the oil pan out of the way. sometimes when things go well like this, it makes you think the car wants to be saved, you know? The way that oxygen sensor came out. Let's see what I've got. If my replacements have that giant cord on them too. They don't. Good. So this is more like it. Let's fish that back in. It'd be better if there's a little bit of room for your hand in here. No worse than spark plugs, I suppose. Maybe go from this angle. Wires, 4 wires going on that. You can kind of see where that is, right? Right on the top entry point of the cat. Problem is, this wire is twisting and then it's making it spring back. I don't know why the whole wire just doesn't turn with it. There we go. Feels better. Okay, so that is finger tight. Let's see. Kind of see why they didn't make it too tight. There's not a lot of room to get a wrench up in here, but actually, it's not bad. Sorry about bumping the camera there. Camera, aka iPhone. Okay, so that's snug. Let's see if we can break this other one loose. With any luck, it'll be as tight as the other side was. Seems to be harder to reach. Let's try from this angle. Gloves are doing a lot of good. There we go. Yeah, going the right way. Yes. Can't really see it. I kind of wonder what happened to the heat shield. It looks like it was torn by something. Get a light in here a little better. Let's remember passenger side goes to the top connector. I think this will be easier if this were unplugged. There we go. Let's hope these were done right the first time, and passenger side really is the top connector. Imagine, like everything else, that would cause some problems. There we go. That's a little easier to turn. Much easier. There we go. Feels like it's finger tight. Kind of. Not quite. There we go. Now, finger tight. Similar, pretty dirty, nothing crazy. Didn't need as many zip ties to hold these out of the way since the cord is the correct length. Okay. That's good. Untangle that wire. All twisted now. And let's figure out the right routing for these. So this is going to go on the bottom connector. Just gonna move it through here for now. This one is going to the top connector. Look and see where we are here. Make sure we're not going to do the same thing. Yeah, okay, that's far from the drive shaft there. This would be better without the light right in my face, too. Little holes in the cross member here, almost as if designed for this. There we go. That is nice. Okay, that's much nicer without the 6 extra miles of wiring. We'll do another zip tie on that one. Where did I put it? What do you think? Is this going to be what makes the difference in how the car runs? This is it. It's going to fire up and run smooth, not smell terrible. Which these cats probably aren't doing much to the smell. I don't know if I'm going to get much down now. Do I have anything to cut those? I do. All right. Excellent. Let's throw the old oxygen sensor away. Okay, I'm going to pause this, get it out from under the car, and we'll get the car back on the ground. All right, so 8 quarts of Mobile Dello 1540 a new filter, 2 new oxygen sensors. 8 quarts went in. Not sure how much I lost pre-filling the filter, so we'll check that after we start it and see. I'm betting half a quart. It seemed like it was draining pretty fast. Let's fire it up and see what happens. The oil pressure light went out in about 4 seconds. Initial start was better, smoother. Probably can't hear it because I've got the mic on. Maybe that made a difference. It's running pretty smooth. Let's see what it smells like back here. It's actually not that bad. All right. Maybe we finally did something that made a difference. Let it run for a minute, check the oil level, see if we need to add anything, and then we'll get it outside. And we'll see. All right, so I think we're going to end this one here. We made some progress. I think the oxygen sensors made a difference. It's not perfect. Still an occasional stumble at idle, but then again, it's got like half a tank of 10-year-old gas. I really should drain that, which I will, and do all the fuel hoses, filters, and then work our way through all of that. Still waiting. I don't even have a title yet, so we're not going crazy on this just yet. That's in the works too. But fresh oil in it now, which is great. The throttle bodies, and the O2 sensors. The O2 sensors, I think, made the biggest difference, especially since one of the wires was cut on the passenger side bank. Should look up and make sure that they're plugged into the right connectors. You never know if someone mixed them up in the past. But otherwise, it's running all right. Lots to do still. I need to get over to the other shop and get some stuff off the parts car before that goes away. But for now, it's not bad. It's running okay, and it's got some potential, I think. One worth saving. So we will see you back soon with this one. Always other projects going on. Can't think of what else, but thanks for watching, and we'll hopefully see you in another week or two.